diagnoses or these labels or these symptoms are just red flags that are telling us about something that is going on deeper within the child or the adult. And that is revolutionary information when people can really take that in and understand that, because that is not what the worlds of medicine and mental health, or I should say traditional mental health, tell people. Hi, so great to see you.
You too. Thank you for being here. I don't know when you tuned in, but I was kind of like dabbling a little bit about bullying that happens, and especially since there's online schooling now and what we don't see. And I'm not a parent, but I just had dinner with some friends last night. Well, it's kind of like, so I had dinner with some friends last night, and one of the women there, she has kids, and she was just sharing some things that are happening in that space where, she's not a teacher and she's still got to work full time, and her business partner, her kid's dad, and so her partner, they're not married anymore, but her partner, he also has to work his full time job, and so with the kids having to sort of manage themselves, it's just these things happen. And then it was just sort of something that I was able to address with that happens here online so often, which even with the lives, and even though it's not kids, we're talking about adults, there's still so much bullying that goes on. And so I think that, what you have to share with us, even though it's sort of like through the lens of how we can help our kids, it's actually something that can help, the parents and just adults and all of us as well. So I don't know if you had like popped in when I was mentioning that, but that was sort of like why I kind of dived into that. And then, and yes, so a little bit of intro to you. Happy that you're here. But for those who are on here that haven't met you yet, I would love if you could just share a little bit more about your background and what we're going to chat about.
Absolutely. And I think I'm so glad that you raised that. I caught the tail end of you talking to your community about that. It's so important because talking about anything with kids, we really are talking about starting with us as the adults. We can't anything that's going on, whether it's physical health-wise, mental health-wise, with their relationships, with their learning, if we don't have our stuff together and aren't being a good model of our own health, managing our own behavior. So it's important to talk about. And unfortunately, in an online setting, whether we're talking about kids or adults, some people who maybe aren't as mature or skilled in managing their thoughts, feelings, behaviors tend to act up. They're unfortunate. It's important to call that out because we can't expect our kids to use technology ways, to engage in their relationships in healthy ways, to not be bullied, manage that stuff if we're not modeling that. So I think a great intro to our time together. And, you sort of gave my formal intro, but just for everybody who's joining, professional, a clinical psychologist specializing in children, teens, and young adults and their families, obviously. My first career was actually in education. I was a teacher and a consultant and administrator. So I have a background in that piece of things and understand the school realm as well. And then through a variety of professional experiences with seeing sort of commonalities in patients that I was treating over the years who were coming in for developmental and mental health issues, but all of these common physical health issues that were going on for them. And I thought this can't be a coincidence that all of these kids, also have things like chronic constipation and allergies and picky eating and, all of these things. And so that got me interested in the nutrition part of things, the integrative health and functional medicine part of things, also seeing some of my own personal kids. And that led me to get another degree in nutrition and integrative health so that I can really provide holistic understanding and treatment for what's going on. And So that's what I do every day in my private practice, along with doing a lot of consulting with companies and families and doing media stuff and teaching. And I stay busy and it keeps me out of trouble.
Yeah. And you do it with so much grace, and you're a super mom. So she's also a mom, you guys, and clearly exemplifies what she teaches and what she helps guide her patients through. So thank you for that quick summary for people who might have missed the beginning of my intro. Let's kind of dive into this, because we really had such a great conversation on your podcast, which I was so honored to be a guest on, just kind of like talking about the foundation. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that probably feel like they really have very solid foundations already. Maybe they have great relationships with their kids, and the kids are functioning well, even within everything that's happening, and all these unknowns that we've kind of gone through over the past 18 months. But I think that there's always more that we can learn and that we can do that can something that, if you don't have a foundation you can start with, or that you can even add to what you've already built. So, I'd love to kind of like focus on some really strong takeaways for parents, or even parents to be, or, you don't even have to be parents, and there's still going to be so much that you're going to be able to take away from the conversation today.
Yeah, I think that the really important foundation to start from is the understanding that whether we're talking about kids or we're talking about adults, when we are thinking about brain-based issues and symptoms, so whether that is kids or individuals with neurodevelopmental issues like maybe autism, ADHD, those kinds of things, or we're talking about more mental health kinds of issues like anxiety, depression, behavioral disorders, that kind of stuff, that these diagnoses or these labels or these symptoms are just red flags that are us about something that is going on deeper within the child or the adult. And that is revolutionary information when people can really take that in and understand that, because that is not what the worlds of medicine and mental health, or I should say traditional mental health, tell people. They tell that, your child has this, they have, there's nothing that you can do, that they have this for life, and, send them to counseling and get them some medication. And there's no exploration of what's really going on. What would cause a child to have all kinds of anxiety about things? What would cause a child who maybe has ADHD to have these severe issues that they have with focusing or with hyperactivity or whatever? We need to get curious about that. And I think parents understanding that, whether it's for their kids or adults for themselves, that these are just signs that something is not working or some things are not working well. And when we dig deeper and look at physiologically what's going on, relational, stress-wise, lifestyle-wise, we start digging into these areas, and suddenly we discover sort of these root issues that are showing up as these brain-based behavioral kinds of symptoms in kids. And to me, that opens up a huge new possibility of options for what we can do about these things. But I think that is a foundation, understanding that the symptoms or the diagnoses, those are not the actual problem. Those are of the problem, and those are an invitation for us to get curious and look deeper.
Yes, and thank you so much for that. I love everything you said, and I think that especially with this audience, you guys can really resonate with what Dr. Beurkens is saying, because it falls so much in line with the same type of philosophy I teach, with culinary alchemy, where having that foundation with what you're actually putting into your body and how that can directly affect your mood. We talk about that all the time, like what you eat, whether it's clean or processed, the health of your gut, all of that affects your mind and your mood, but also energy as well. So, what the energy that you bring to your home, to the family, to the kids that you might not be aware of, you might think you're stressed about work and it's just all about work, but if that energy comes into the family space into the home space or with your kids, you might not even be aware that they're picking up on that, and they're trying to figure out how to mitigate that, and they're not really sure how to even take that on. And kids I feel are inherent healers themselves. Like they almost don't know different. They kind of come into this world, they come into this life, and they love. They just love. They love, and they don't really have a sense of fear. They don't really know what stress and anxiety is, and they just love, and they want, and they kind of want to connect that way. And so I just love everything that you're saying, and how it's just a reminder that sometimes we just have to go past that first layer, what seems like is wrong. It seems like that your child is acting out, but maybe they're stressed. Maybe they have anxiety around how they can help you feel better because you're coming home stressed every single day. And so I would just love for you to maybe give us a little bit more information around that, because that, as I'm sure you've seen, a massive growth in your clinic in terms of those being the same situational challenges. That's come up even for me in my practice, because it affects their bodies and their diets, and, as you said, constipation and just functionality of the physical body.
Yeah, I think this idea of energy and relationships and sort of the energy system of the home is so critical. Before I even start talking with families or parents about things like nutrition or screen time or school issues or whatever in terms of our interventions, and there's lots of things that we can do in all those realms, we have to start with really the most impactful thing that we can do for kids is really get a healthy parent-child relationship and dynamic going, and that and help the home environment relationally and interpersonally get healthy, to help parents understand how to manage their own needs and stressors better. And boy, has that been a big thing over the last 18 months, especially with COVID and everything, right? So how do we manage ourselves? How do we get in touch with our needs and what we need to do to get ourselves in a better place? And then how do we communicate with our kids effectively? How do we create opportunities to relate to them in more effective and healthy ways? How do we structure the home environment and our schedule and our lives to support who our kids are, their natural, their strengths, their challenges? How do we create this family and home environment that really allows for healing for everyone and allows them to layer in the interventions in the realms of nutrition or movement or education or whatever else it might be? But it really does start with that and that relationship between us and our children, and that then is the ultimate key to change in everything. We cannot affect true lasting change in kids until we have really grounded it in a healthy, strong, positive parent-child bond and relationship.
And thank you for that. That's so important. And it sounds like, it's obvious, right? But we still need that reminder because it goes right over. We get really caught up in the ebb and flow of life and all the different changes and uncertainties that have been happening. And we kind of forget that very fundamental reminder that that's sort of where it starts. That's really where the foundation is. So we had a bunch of questions come in. Just, people are so challenged with, something that I just brought up earlier, just how to help their kids with the whole, online schooling. And then now, of course, with the vaccines being something that it's a very divisive topic, and different schools have different rules. Yeah. And so people are just having such a hard time with that, and not really knowing, because there is no playbook for this, right? How to help their kids with that. So, they can live in one area, but different schools in the same area may have different rules for it. So I would love just some insight on that to share with the community.
Absolutely. The hardest thing about the entire pandemic situation has been the massive amounts of uncertainty around it. And what does uncertainty do to us as human beings, adults and kids? It creates stress and anxiety. We like to believe that we're in control of things. We like to that we know what's going to happen. The more certainty we think we have, the more calm, relaxed, and in control we feel.
Yes.
But there's been massive uncertainty about everything. And for kids, there's been lots of uncertainty. And so the normal thing that happens when uncertainty goes up, our anxiety and stress go up with it. So I want to offer a framework for parents to think about with their kids, or if any of you are teachers or you work with kids or kids who are not your own but are family members, whatever. Here's a framework to think about helping them navigate these changes and transitions now as things are easing up, as school is starting back up. You can think of anxiety as really a formula of uncertainty plus our sense of capability to handle that uncertainty equals the amount of anxiety that we feel. So uncertainty plus our capability to handle it equals our anxiety. So here's the thing to think about. If we try to intervene on the uncertainty side of things, which is often what adults try to do, trying to reassure kids, no, it'll be fine, you don't need to do that, or maybe, kids are anxious and they're asking the same questions, and we just think if we answer it enough or if we give them enough information, we'll bring that uncertainty down and their anxiety down. Here's the problem with that. First of all, kids inherently know we're lying, that we actually have total control and that it might not be okay, right? And it might not. We don't have a crystal ball. So trying to support them and reduce their anxiety by controlling the uncertainty side of that equation doesn't work. Here's what does work, is focusing on that capability or that competence that I can handle whatever's going to happen. Focusing on that part. So no, I can't guarantee it's that everything will be normal or okay or exactly how it's going to look or how it's going to be when they get back to school. But what I can do is help shore up their sense of being capable to handle whatever might happen. So gosh, I don't know if you're going to have to wear a mask all the time or if your classes are going to get split up. I don't know, but let's talk about how you'll handle it if that happens. Let's talk about hard situations you encountered last year or before and how you made it through. Let's talk about the strength and resilience that you have. How would you cope with that? And by doing that, by focusing on building their sense of, oh, I'm capable of handling hard things. I'm capable of managing things that might come up. That is what reduces the anxiety. So that is key there.
Yeah, no, that is just brilliant. And I really feel and thank you for that, because that's something I can take immediately and share, share with half a dozen of my girlfriends that I already know have these same issues. And like exactly what you said, focus on their capability, focus on the fact that that they're going to be able to get through it and that you can get through it as a family, that as a parent, or just as an adult in a relationship with like maybe your niece or your nephew or your godkids, whatever it is, that you are there to support, to help them kind of get through and navigate. And so that was really, really, really beautifully said and so helpful. And thank you for all the hearts, you guys. I think that just from the comments here, it's been really helpful also for a lot of the people on here. Could we actually kind of go back to what we had first started talking about a little bit with the bullying, and maybe also just kind of give some tools for parents, for teachers, caretakers, how to manage that type of situation, what tools they can give the kids, how to approach that.
Yeah, and as kids have been spending a lot of time with online schooling and online platforms, data is showing that kind of thing has increased.
Yes, very much, yes.
Well, so let me anchor some strategies around that, really with what we just talked about, that we can't make bullying go away. Unfortunately, bullying, kids are going to encounter it. And the research shows that over 75% of kids, by the time they get to high school, report that they have either been the victim of bullying or have witnessed bullying behavior directly. So we can't escape it. We can't try to tell our kids that, oh, don't worry about that, or it probably won't happen to you, or give them tools to try to avoid it. That's not helpful. What's helpful is supporting them in raising their capability, their emotional resilience for how they can handle that, and giving them some strategies and some tools there. And there's a couple different types of tools. One type is specific skills and steps to take if they are the victim of bullying or witnessing it. So we talk about specific steps with kids of, you want to stand up for yourself and tell the person to stop right away. I don't like that, or that's not appropriate. And then you yourself, if it's possible, and you go and tell a trusted adult. And there are all kinds of acronyms for that. There's wonderful programs online that are simple, that are free, that kids and parents can go through. Schools teach these things too, but it's being clear about telling the bully or the perpetrator to stop, removing yourself from the situation and not engaging in it, and then telling a trusted adult who can help you manage that. And what I will say to parents who are experiencing this, if your child has done that, if they have come to you and expressed that, it's important that you not dismiss it. Sometimes parents go, oh, they feel emotionally escalated by it, and like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. Like, oh, just try to avoid it, or it's probably not a big deal. No, you need to take that seriously. You need to dig into that with your child.
Yeah.
If they bring it to someone at school and it is not addressed, as a parent, you need to step in there and force the issue and communicate with school and make sure that that is heard and that is addressed. Far too often, I see parents who are like, we've reported it to the school, my child is happening in school, and anything about it. And it's important that kids can't be expected to navigate that on their own. You need to step in, your head, getting that addressed. So those are sort of the specific strategies that we teach kids. But the other piece of that is equally important is talking with them about the emotions that go along with that.
Yes.
Let's be expressive about how hurtful that is, how disappointing, how anger-provoking, how they're feeling, and giving them some tools and strategies for building their resilience around that. Handle it within ourselves. When someone that we thought was our friend goes behind our back and says terrible things in an Instagram, group online to others, handle it. When this kid who's much bigger than us on the playground, starts threatening us and has a group of kids there with them. What are the feelings around that? And then how do we think about ourselves? How do we build resilience? How do we recognize that this is not actually about us? This is about them. How can we help our kids stay in touch with their goodness, that someone else's behavior is no reflection on who they are, and giving tools for being able to express their feelings, calm themselves, and be able to walk away from that and not engage and not have it permanently damage their self-image they are. Sometimes parents are so good at working through that with kids. Sometimes it's valuable to bring in, a therapist or a counselor skilled with kids who can help them work through some of those things, especially if the child has been the victim of some serious bullying things, which many of our kids, especially who are maybe neurodivergent on the autism spectrum with some learning challenges, kinds of things. So it can be valuable to partner with a professional skilled in doing that work with kids to help them develop the coping skills and give them the emotional outlet. But it's really those two pieces. And the biggest thing that we can do as adults in kids' lives is to modeling behavior ourselves, communicating online and in real life with other adults and with children in healthy, respectful appropriate ways. We keep saying to kids, well, don't bully other people when they, are on social media and see the way that we talk to people,
Yes. Exactly what we talked about today earlier, that we have to be those role models. That was so helpful. Thank you. I'm just curious, and just kind of the way my mind works. Do we ever, what about also kind of teaching empathy? Because sometimes that action from a bully is really a cry for help, right? Or just a way that they're trying to express it's displaced, anger, emotion, anxiety, stress, fear, sadness. Maybe it depends on how old a child is, but would that be something that could be helpful? And not in a way to excuse that behavior clearly, but is there any way or some sort of strategy to kind of teach the kids that are the victims of bullying or witnessing it, just that side, or to kind of explain that might not even be who that person is.
Yes, and that, what comes to my mind when you say that is, I say to parents and kids and people in general all the time, which is all feelings are welcome, all behaviors are not.
Great reminder.
So that is a very helpful way to frame this with kids, of helping them understand typically kids bullying, they have their own traumas, they have their own issues, all of that, and that we can empathize and understand that's where that's coming from. And their behavior, what they do with those feelings, may be very inappropriate, and we need to speak up and call that out and address that. Because sometimes in talking with kids about having empathy and what's going on there, we don't also strongly enough send the message that, and how they're dealing with that is not okay.
Not the way to do it.
That to you, and you do need to stand up for yourself, and we're not going to have this continue to happen. But that's another piece where sometimes kids are really reluctant to tell adults what's going on. And one way to frame that for a reluctant kid is to say, look, these kids who are bullies often are the victims of bullying themselves, that they may be issues going on that they need help for. And by you speaking up and letting adults in your life know that this is going on, that can provide an opportunity then for that child to get the help they need. And that's another way of saying that. But it's that idea of all feelings are welcome. We can empathize. All behavior is not.
It's such a good, that's such a good reminder. I think that's going to be one of the slides that we have. That'll be that quote, just a reminder. And I think a reminder for all of us, not just as we model, ourselves for our kids. It's such a good reminder. You're allowed to have your feelings, and you truly honor them, embrace them, but how you behave is different, and how you behave to be mindful of others.
And that's so important when we think about that parent-child relationship and the balance that can be tough for parents who are trying to be more conscious in their parenting, trying to be mindful, using positive parenting techniques, not raising their baby with the punitive, oriented ways that they were raised. It can be tough to balance that with still setting clear, appropriate boundaries. And boundaries. And that's where this idea for me of all feelings are welcome, all behaviors are not, it comes into play in our parenting. I can have a lot of empathy and acknowledge the very real, uncomfortable feelings my kids might be having. I get you're angry, you're really frustrated, you're disappointed, embarrassed, whatever it might be. I can empathize with that. I can acknowledge that. We can talk about that. And all behavior is not welcome, meaning if you choose to, in feeling angry, behave in a way that is dangerous to another person, that is damaging something, then that we need to set a limit and boundary on. So we can do those things, but I think it's in parents understanding that both pieces are needed, the acknowledgement and the empathy, along with the clear, firm limits and boundaries.
Yes, it's so important. And, you know, I just want to acknowledge everyone that's on here. There's a few hundred of you, and thank you for being so engaged and just sharing with us your feedback. I think this is such an important live, and this will definitely, you know, we'll have all the replays up and let you guys know. And I think several of you said you were sharing it with your friends and people that you think could really benefit from the information here. And a lot of it is just reminders. But the biggest reminder is that we really set the pace. You know, we really set the tone, not pace, the tone for our children, for the children, and for our families. And so, such a good reminder about that. I wanted to also address, of course, what if your children are the bullies? You know, like what are some strategies for addressing and kind of digging past that first layer to kind of figure out like what their emotions are, why their energy is coming out in this way.
Yeah. And I think the first important thing with that is when a parent discovers that their child is maybe the perpetrator is the one engaging in that, there's a tremendous amount of shame, embarrassment, guilt that comes up for the parent. And when we react out of that place, we often don't handle it with our kids in a very effective way. So the first thing is if you get information letting you know that, oh, my kid is the one doing this, to take the time and use the strategies to work through your own emotions and regulate and calm yourself that with your child. And then you really do sit down and have a frank conversation about it. Hey, you know, the school called and told me this, or, you know, Johnny's mom sent me a text and told me this is going on, or, you know what, I happened to look at your Instagram and saw, you know, that you were involved in this thread and the things that you said. I want to talk about that. I feel like this is important. And starting out by asking, you know, what do you think's going on here? What's going on for you? Tell me what's happening from your perspective. Always start with allowing them to share what's going on of it, because we make a lot of assumptions, right?
Right.
About what they're thinking, you know, what's going on for them, and say, wow, you know, usually when kids do these kinds of things, there's some big feelings that they're not sure how to handle. And let's talk about what's going on there. And you get to kind of digging through the layers of what's actually going on. And usually at that point, kids will break down and they'll cry and say, I'm feeling so stupid at school because, you know, I can't do these things right, and I feel so dumb, and, you know, he laughed at me, and then this is what I did, or, you know, I'm feeling really left out by the other girls, and so I did this to try to make myself look better, right? I mean, kids know, even younger kids know. When you are able to keep your own emotions and thoughts in check and approach it with them from a stance of curiosity and tell me what it's about for you, then we can partner with them as the adult in guiding them through how to actually meet their needs. Because bullying obviously is not going to do that, but also how to address the situation. You know, they need to apologize to. Is there a meeting or a conversation that needs to happen? How do you repair that? Yes. That really is the framework for how we address those things with kids in an effective way.
Yes, no, again, so helpful. Thank you so much, Nicole. I mean, all of this, I mean, I know everyone's taking notes, and like we can have transcripts even for this, because I think it's necessary. You've just shared so much helpful information. And I know that, you know, we didn't talk a lot about nutrition, but, you know, you guys know we talk about this on a regular. What applies to us applies to the kids. You know, really keeping them away from like highly processed foods at all. You know, sugars, just all of that. It's just so important to give kids that foundation, because you're the ones giving them food. You know, you're the ones serving it to them. And so it's so important that what we're giving them as a base to begin with, that first step, is, as you know, if organic isn't possible for you, reach for organic whenever you can, and just whole fruits, vegetables, grains if you do it, you know, high quality meat. And I know that may be challenging for some in certain areas, but if you make that an intention and you're mindful about it, even if it's not, you know, every single item, at least you're going to check off most of it, and that's a great base. So I just wanted to send that as a reminder.
So true. And I think just, you know, to put an exclamation point on that, understanding that this is not just Serena and Dr. Nicole saying that this is a good thing to do. There is good, substantial research behind the idea, showing us that what we put in our bodies, in our children's through food, has a tremendous impact on their brain development, on their and on their behavior. So you and I talk about these things not because we just woke up one day and we're like, oh, this makes sense, this would be a good idea, but because there's actually a lot of scientific evidence showing us the impact that nutrition, that nutrients, that food has on the brain and behavior. And, you know, we can, maybe we'll do another live at some point delving into that. Just for parents to understand that you probably will not hear this from your mainstream medical practitioners, from your pediatricians, but it's important for you to know that these solutions are out there. These things do make a difference. Child is struggling with these things. Nutrition is a research-based, appropriate place to look to say what changes might be helpful.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for that exclamation point as we're kind of coming up to the tail end of this. I mean, this has just been, it's been so insightful and just so helpful. I mean, I feel like, you know, we've been on for about 40 minutes and I feel like, you know, 45 of it, which is all helpful information. And I see so many people just saying that they're sharing this. And so thank you guys and thank you so much. You know, we should probably do another one because I think that's something I would love to dive into another time. That might be helpful. It's just, you know, so many kids are just having such a hard time with just what it's been, you know, 2020 and 2021, and just the sadness that they feel, missing their friends. They're just burnt out. You know, they're just really burnt out. And they're doing their best as well. So, you know, if you have a few, I guess, takeaways for that, please share. But maybe that would be a great topic for another live. It's just to really kind of like dive into what you've learned in the past year and a half as really like helpful specifically for pandemic-related burnout for the kids.
What I will say is that it's really important, especially as we start wrapping up summer and heading into the new school year and everything that's going to bring, to give ourselves and our children the grace and the space to work through that in a way that's going to be manageable for you and for them, and to lower the bar a bit, quite frankly, and recognize that kids have been through a lot, whether they've shown it on the surface or not. They have been through a lot, and so have we. And now is not the time to be raising the bar on everything and saying, oh, you know, school's starting back up, it's going to be a normal year, and you're expected to, you know, do all these things, and we're going to go back to the super hectic pace of that. No. Keep it slow paced, ease back in, slowly raise the bar of expectations, but give yourself and your kids the grace and the space to move into this next season with more ease, with more care, with focusing on those foundations of, you know, quality environment at home, maintaining a quality relationship with them. The details and all of that will fall into place, but just respect where we've been, where they are, and just allowing for this to unfold in a more graceful, ease-filled, non-demanding kind of way.
Yes, I love that. And so resonates deeply with me. I can see that it's resonating with a lot of other people on here too. On that note, Dr. Nicole, Dr. Beurkens, how are you? Like, I just adore you. And I'm so grateful to Dr. Michael Bruce for introducing us, because you're such a bright light. And I think we should absolutely try and set something up again and just kind of dive in a little bit more. But this has been so great and so helpful. And I just love the note that you're leaving us with. That's the biggest takeaway from this. Brings you back to the foundation, and to really go into this next season with grace. So thank you for that. And thank you so much, everyone, for staying on with us and for the questions that you sent in earlier. They were obviously great questions. We had some great answers. And then I don't know, are you back home? Are you in Michigan or?
But as things open up, I'll be doing more travel. The world is opening, events are happening. It's great. So I can't wait. The next time our paths cross in person. Yeah. So excited your episode on my podcast is coming. Yes. So put a plug in for that for everyone who's still on. Had an awesome conversation with Serena about energy healing and Reiki and kids, and it's beautiful, and it's going to air in a few weeks. So
yes, so excited.
And get the info on when that releases, because I know your whole community will just love listening to that episode. So
yay, thank you. Yes, and you guys, if you haven't yet, on the pinned comment here in the very bottom, you'll see Dr. Beurkens' Instagram account. So go give her a follow, go check it out. She's doing incredible things, and just such a wealth of information, such a resource. So thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for being with us here today. And we're going to talk soon.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Great to see all of you.
Okay, all right. Bye, guys. See you later.